Hello and welcome to our program where each week we'll bring you a series of interviews with people educating and inspiring in the hot topics of health, wellbeing and lifestyle. For our first guest today we have Trudy Pavlovsky, the Queen of Shadow Values, who will be talking to us today about embracing our shadow values. Welcome, Trudy.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here today, Linda.
What are shadow values for our viewers out there?
Viewers might be able to identify general normal values. So the traditional values of trust and love and respect, those nice values that you're totally happy to share with the world because they feel good. I work with the values on the flip side, which are the shadow values. So these are values that growing up, something's happened, we've been taught to be ashamed of wanting this value, and I illuminate those values. We bring them into the light because when you harness the power of the shadow values, what happens, you use these values to motivate you with your goals, and your life just can take off in ways that never before thought possible. So there's 10, and today obviously we don't have time to go through 10 of them. So I really wanted to share 2 of them today. So I wanted to talk about attention and validation, because when I work with people with these values and they embody it and they get it, their life really does start to transform. So I'll talk to you about attention first, because here we are on TV, like center of attention. So we've embodied this value, right? We feel good about getting attention. But I want to ask the viewers, how many of you out there secretly crave attention, to be seen, to be recognized, but you don't take the action to go out and do it? Especially if you're in business or you're wanting to change your life somehow, get a promotion, receiving attention when it feels good allows you to get what you really want. And then with validation, this is a really interesting one, because quite often when we're growing up and we're like little kids, we're always looking for approval from a parent or a teacher or an older sibling. But if we don't get that approval, we feel bad, and then we start looking for it further and further afield, and we lose trust in our own ability to make decisions for ourselves and to be okay going after what we want. So when we learn to invalidate ourselves internally and stop asking 20 people around us if what we want to do is okay, we just feel better. We start taking action from a place that's so much more inspired. And if we're in business or if we're looking to create something in our life, we get the momentum because we're not constantly having to check in with somebody else.
Trudy, we were talking off camera about imposter syndrome. So could you explain to our viewers something a bit more about imposter syndrome and what it is for them?
Imposter syndrome, which is a person's inability to believe in their own results, no matter how much they've studied, how much effort they've put in, no matter how many times people say good job. That ties in so closely with shadow values and downplayed their results. Chances are, if you're doing that and saying that to yourself, you've got imposter syndrome. And so what happens when you start embodying your shadow values, that little imposter syndrome voice, it just gets quieter and quieter and quieter in your mind, because your shadow values, when you can be comfortable with attention, can validate yourself, and some of the other ones, take control of your own life, honor your own ambitions, own your own superiority, be comfortable receiving money. When you build up all of those, the imposter syndrome stops, because you get comfortable being recognized for who you are. Because it goes back to our beliefs around what we have around who we are, how we show up, what we want to create in the life, and what we think is possible. And beliefs form in childhood, and they're based purely on our experiences, so they're very unique for everyone. And when you can look at your beliefs and see how they've formed patterns growing up and how they shape your life, then you can see these are my values, and they all tie together in a nice little bow. But if you want to start transforming these things, it's like, have a look at where you're putting the brakes on in your life, where you're saying, I can't possibly do that, or I can't receive that, or I'm not worthy. Because when you look at those patterns and those thoughts that you have in your head, that's when you can start creating the change. And it's not something that happens overnight. It's something that you chip away at every day. And you would start with the value of attention. And it's like, where do I not feel comfortable receiving attention? And one of the ladies I worked with, she didn't feel comfortable going out in a pretty dress and wearing lipstick. So she decided one day, because she'd received negative attention in the past, she decided that she was better than the past, and she wanted to reinvent the story that she was telling herself. So she got up one morning, she put on the nice dress, did her lipstick, did up her hair, and she walked down the street. And she'd made the decision when she was walking down the street to hold herself high, to smile at people, and be comfortable in that moment.
So with that education that you've received in your own life about imposter syndrome, about shadow values and how all of these things play out for you, what really inspired you to look further into your own life and how that existed there?
Yeah. I didn't have exactly a happy life, and there were times when I didn't want to be here anymore. And I got to a point in my life where I really had to make the decision, how do I want to feel? How do I want to show up? How do I want to be seen in this world? And what kind of legacy do I want to leave? And that took me on a journey of learning about life coaching, neurolinguistic programming, energy work. I've got so many qualifications, it's ridiculous. But it started with that decision to go, I want more. I deserve more. I'm worthy of more. I gave myself permission to be the person that I always knew I was here to be. In spite of the pain and the trauma and the disappointments, I decided to look beyond that and go, I'm here for so much more. And embracing all of those values, and it just changed everything. And so that's why I'm here, to share that work.
And also, as a last takeaway for the audience, what would you say to them as a suggestion for them to take away from today?
One of the biggest lessons I learnt in life was that permission, it all starts with you. Now, I could have decided to stay miserable, but I decided I wanted more. So I gave myself permission, and then I looked at the decisions that I was making, and I decided to make different decisions. And from those decisions came smart choices. So for me, it's permission, decisions, choices.
Thank you, Trudy. And for more information about embracing your shadow values, please go to our website. Welcome back. And today we have Steve Hall back with us, our holistic coach. And part of the series in Living a Life of Value and Meaning, today's topic is our relationship with fear. So welcome back, Steve.
Thank you, Linda, and thanks for the introduction.
Our relationship with fear.
I know, right? A lot of people don't like fear, and I can well understand that. But we've been talking about how to love yourself more, how to connect with your values and your purpose in life. And fear is an important part of that, because there's people want to do things, they want to improve their life, they want to get better at what they're doing, and then they find something stopping them, and it's quite often the relationship with fear. So I thought it's worthwhile to explore that a little bit and find out what is our relationship with fear and how does that impact us.
With that in mind, how do we create a better relationship with fear?
I'll share a little bit about what I imagine in my own mind when I'm thinking about fear and when I'm realising the effect it's having on me, right? So I imagine my emotions. I like listening to them now, something that I learned along the way in my life. It's like, listen to your emotions, what they're telling you. Don't ignore them or try and push them away. So I imagine in my own mind, when I've got a dilemma or something, or I've got an emotion expressing itself, I imagine there's a boardroom, like a boardroom table in my mind with a chairman and all that, and the emotions are sitting at the table. And the emotion that is quite often the loudest is fear. And one thing that I've understood about fear, it's sort of like fear has anxiety itself. And the less my self-belief is turning up, the less self-belief I have in myself, the noisier my fear gets. So it's like my fear is present when I'm not, and learning who I am, what I value, and taking control of my life and responsibility is what has the most effect on fear. It's sort of like my fear calms down, and then it becomes just more like a warning, like a pet dog. I often find, my fear is a lot like a pet dog. It'll bark at something if it gets scared, right? And my job, if my self-belief is big enough, if I'm there, if I'm present, my job is, what's up, boy? Acknowledge that it's spoken and give it a pat and go, it's all right, I got this, I'm here. And it'll go, oh, thanks, you've noticed, you've listened to me, and it'll sit down. And that's what fear's like for me. It's like I've recreated what it means. It no longer controls me. I'm not scared of fear myself, because I realise now it's just trying to get my attention so I can be aware of something. And that's the relationship with fear that we all need to understand, so we can build our self-belief, and then we can achieve what it is we really want to achieve in our life. The things that we love, our mission, our values, our purpose, all of that is possible if fear is coming along for the ride and not calling the shots.
How would it tie in with that? How would we break free, really, of that fear that's...
See, fear is ever present, and it's meant to be. It's quite a useful emotion. It's not something that we need to overcome or overpower. A lot of our life, that's our first thing that we want to do with fear, is we want to stop it. We want to push it down, push it away, get away from it, distract ourselves. And this is what we find when we try and pursue what we love. We'll get distracted and we'll find that we can't achieve it. And people will say, why am I procrastinating? Well, fear can often be the cause. Fear gets too strong and we're not listening to it. We're trying to suppress it. So it's very important we get a good relationship, not just with fear, with all our emotions, but fear is a really important one to start with, because it's the one that's loudest. It wants reassurance most. So we have to give that reassurance to ourselves. Take a deep breath. We've talked about breathing before.
Oh, wonderful.
Deep breath, and it'll send a signal to ourselves and our emotions, I'm okay, I've got this. And then you can have that conversation with your emotions, fear being one of them.
So for our viewers, what would be the best advice from today with their fears?
It would be the breathing technique to start with, and start reflecting on, what do I really want here and what's really worrying me? So you take a deep breath in and you listen to what fear's expressing to you. What are you really worried about? If you write it down, is a good way. Just get to the point. What is that thing that I'm worried about? Because whatever the fear is telling us, we try and attach to everything and we start worrying about way too much. But when you write it down, you have to become quite specific, and you'll find that this might only be one thing, and it stops it bouncing around and like a snowball, getting bigger and bigger as it rolls downhill, and you can't go to sleep at night. It keeps you awake. So writing it down, becoming quite specific with what it is, and you go, actually, that's a little bit, a bit, it's good. Now I can focus on that. I'm not getting distracted. I'm not catastrophizing it. It's not getting out of control. Yeah, okay. And then you can sort of speak to your emotion. I've got this. Yeah, no, I can do that, and I want to do this, whatever it is. Like it might be giving a talk in front of people. I want to do this. And then your fear will it'll settle down. It'll still be there, but you'll have a good relationship with it. You just go, what am I really worried about? And if I have to write down, I'm nervous about what people will think when I'm talking to them, I'll see how that's nothing to get over dramatic about. It's not the end of life, the sky's not going to fall in. And that puts it in context for me. And I go, I've got this. Yeah, no, it's all right. And I reassure myself. And then I go, this is something I want. And honestly, the whole feeling changes. And I've really developed this technique to a point where I don't really worry about that sort of stuff anymore. So that's what it's all about. And it's connecting us with our values, what we love in life, and accepting all our emotions. It's really good.
Thanks so much, Steve. And for more from Steve and living a life of value and meaning, and specifically your relationship with fear, then please go to his webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we'll be back with another guest and another topic. Welcome back, and now we have George Chintillis, who's a somatic psychotherapist and is here today to talk to us about how we heal. Well, George, how do we heal?
Well, how do we heal? That's a great question. It's an exciting question because what we've discovered over the last 20, 30 years, especially in the time that I've been practicing, is just phenomenal with the neuroscience that's come out and all the major developments in mindfulness and attachment theory. It's just phenomenal with what we can see within the body now that tells us what actually causes disease and problems and habits that we can't break and where we feel blocked and where performances drop and when you get anxiety and depression and trauma and the effect of car accidents and operations and all sorts of things that affect us. We now know a lot more than we ever did on how to actually go about getting inside, getting in there, working through the issues, healing them. Yeah, so without having to take a pill for everything and for any disease or any problem that you find within your own body or habitual issues that you might have. It could be relationship issues, it could be developmental issues from childhood, it could be habits, all sorts of things, that anxieties, depressions, times when you're down, insomnia, when you can't sleep, all sorts of fears and phobias. A lot of those now can actually be healed very quickly, and you can do it yourself. You can basically do it yourself just by going in within your own body, contacting the cells of your body, staying with them, and then your body will start to heal them. And what we know is that the makeup of the body is basically in your brain. You've got three brains. We've been brought up in school to work with the intellect, that top brain, and that's great. It has its value, but it's also limited because there's a lot more to our body and our nervous system where our anxieties are stored, which is what we call the subconscious, the part of you you're not even aware of, and we need to be able to access that. And we've got great ways now to access it, and which is why I love mindfulness. That's taken off now the last 10, 20 years, and a lot of the MRI scans and all the great scans that are coming out now to actually prove that when you're in that mindful state, close your eyes, go within, you can actually heal a lot of things. And even as we're talking now, and even as you're looking at me now, your brain's actually rewiring itself. We now know that. It's just phenomenal. We used to think, maybe it only happens when you're asleep or occasionally, and maybe it gets less and less and it gets fixed as you get older. Not the case at all. Not the case at all. Your brain is totally plastic, and you can change anything at any age, at any time. So age we're redefining age. There's nothing that says you have to actually age as you get older. You only age is because of diseases and things you haven't dealt with, issues you haven't dealt with in yourself, you've just buried, and we bury a lot of things within our own body, and even when you think you've resolved them, you've actually buried them. You think you've resolved them, and you've resolved them at the top brain, the intellect level, and then you get on with your life, and then you wonder why you start feeling heavier, and then you start reacting to things, and then diseases pop up. Then you need a pill, and then you need all sorts of things, and sick leave, and you lose friends, and issues start to happen. Why? And relationships break up. That happens a lot. Why does that happen? But because there's issues in your body, within the cells of your body, within those two lower brains, I'll talk about in a minute, that actually stop you from fully healing. So the intellect level's great, where you can change your thinking and reading books, talking to people, listening to this program. We're using our intellect right now. But if you learn to mindfully process yourself at a body mindfulness state where actually you close your eyes, go in a little bit deeper than just the thinking, then you start to access that deeper part of you. And then there's the feeling brain, which then starts to be accessed, which is your emotional state. We know a lot of our emotions are centered around there, and they flow through your whole nervous system in your body. You can't ignore your emotions. A lot of people can. If people think, oh, okay, I'll just block them off and get on with my life. No, I'm fine now. But really you're not. You've actually denied them and you've blocked them off, and then you feel it in your body. It becomes pressure. And then over the years, that pressure builds and builds and builds, and it stacks up on itself. All those cells in your body will pack in. And then if they don't get oxygen, they don't get blood flow, they don't get even life energy from yourself, that's when it gets diseased. That's when it starts reacting, because it becomes literally a mind of its own. This part in your body and in your brain related to your body, you pack it in, you think you're fine, but then one day something goes wrong. And really what you want to do is prevent that. Take time each day, go within yourself, find where you feel those compressed parts, the parts that you think you've resolved. They're actually there in your body, which is why I highly recommend mindfulness-based meditation, where you go into your body, stay with it, take time out to learn how to stop, close your eyes, do that each day. And then you'll start to realise what's actually going on. And you start to realise the landscape of your body and how it's linked to the issues in your brain and the two lower brains that are stopping you from being more of who you can be, being fully realised, fully authentic, fully happy, joyous, peace of mind, all that, and even feeling love for yourself and the world. You've got that within you. But because of things that happen in our lives, that starts to get blocked off. We push it down, thinking, well, we'll get around to that, I'll take a pill for that and suppress it. And it doesn't go, and that builds. So we really want to be able to take time out, feel yourself, go within yourself.
Just for our viewers, would you have an example in a case study or someone this has worked well for?
Yeah, even personally, I know of one person who couldn't get on a plane, for years. And his wife would love to have gone holidays with him, and just for whatever reason, I mean, there was a deep trauma there, I'd imagine, as we did find out eventually, there's always some trauma there underneath. Imagine if you can't get on a plane for decades and you can't move out of your home, and all of a sudden if you started to do the mindfulness meditation, went into their body, and all the stuff that was there suppressed started to come out gently and release a little bit at a time. Emotions, old tensions, and even that lower brain of the sensory motor brain, or the physical release of the body, that fight-flight response. And no problem now at all. Get on planes, not an issue. And I can't even believe that they're able to do that, because it's just, they're finding it hard to believe that they can actually go and do something they could never do for decades. So,
or maybe, George, could you come back and talk to us more about healing those traumas next time?
Yeah, I'd love to.
That'd be fabulous.
Yeah.
And for now, we'll say bye-bye and we'll see you next week.